Clap.
Check. Clap.
Yeah.
I'm holding a microphone.
Where's your mic stand?
I don't. So I'm recording this from my house.
Yeah.
And I don't keep that stuff at my house. I keep it at my job.
But you knew you were gonna be here. So is it a little bit frustrating that you don't have your microphone stand?
Yeah. It's also a little frustrating that I also forgot my interface and a cable to plug into a Mac. That little dongle. Forgot both of those. Had to go borrow them this morning, along with this microphone.
Well, you sound great.
That's right, baby.
And it's great to be here with you. Do you have any idea what podcast you were on right now?
It's called Movie House. Am I right? Rewatch Ryan.
Oh, shit. You know, I'm actually more impressed that you could recall Movie House in general.
Okay.
That was more impressive than the joke itself because, you know, that's just a different era. I could already tell this is going to be chaos, and I'm absolutely here for it. So let me intro this video and this podcast real quick. Welcome to Watch Diary. This is the podcast that Brando has graciously joined me on. I'm so excited to be here. Last week, I promised you guys Brando Hall. Some of you might know him, some of you don't. If you know him, it's because you're on your way to unsubscribing from this YouTube channel because it is no longer sight and sound.
That's right. Amen.
I'm because of this rebrand with the YouTube channel Rewatch Ryan. I'm simply losing subscribers because I've solidified that Jay Williams is not coming back to talk about Brand New. That's literally what's happening.
Yeah, that's what's happening. It has nothing to do with who you are as a person.
I told our viewers, our listeners last week that this was going to be epic when we finally sit down together because, simply put, you and I have greater chemistry than you and your wife do. Is that correct?
Yeah, I often call out your name during sex with my wife.
What does she say? Who?
No, she goes, from sight and sound? From Movie House?
I promised the people great chemistry. Also promised people a little bit of body shaming. That's something that you and I are doing lately. Body shaming.
That's right.
How much did you miss having what you intend to be just normal conversations with me about pop culture and then me turning it into, oh, let's just make this into content? How did you miss those interactions?
Yeah, because I always talk to you anyway, like we're on a podcast.
Yeah.
Nothing changes when we get on here, except for I'm like understanding that other people, a few might listen to this, but no, we talk to each other this way. Our relationship is maybe the strangest relationship I have while also being very familiar friends. But I think everyone in your life could say that about you.
Yeah. So just for context, guys, Brando texted me a few days ago. Outside of the podcast, he had just watched The Batman for the first time, and we're going to talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
But you just started ranking Batman movies, and you can't do that in my vicinity without me just being like, hey, this is perfect for an episode of Every Movie Ever, which granted, you have no idea what Every Movie Ever is because you're not subscribed to my podcast or my YouTube channel. But
that's right.
I think you said something along the lines of, I thought I was just texting you about this.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't know that I thought these days were gone. Long gone.
The days, my anxiousness, my anxiety, all of that stuff is gone. Well, as it relates to the podcast, not from my life, but as it relates to the podcast, feeling this constant need. I am excited to put out content, but I don't have a constant need. I sat pretty the past, I think like 6 days went by and I didn't think about putting out content. So all the anxiousness and that kind of hustle and grind is gone. I told you when I asked you to be on here that I just literally just wanted you to do the stuff that you wanted to do, and we were just gonna have fun. And there was, you know, I wanted it to be seamless and effortless, and so that's the intention. Are you feeling that so far?
I am, and you know, I just want to say thank you for leaving your fan in the shot, because that might be the only one you have in your life right now, and the decision to leave it there is so killer. So thank you for that. I mean, I went out and painted this backdrop, and
Yeah.
this is what you gave me.
I feel like if there was like a greatest hits moments, like in 10 years, somebody does like a Watch Diary compilation, I feel like that quote right there is going to be in it.
Oh, sure.
Because whether you're here or not, long after you're dead, I'm still going to have this fan in the background and maybe a sign above it that says my only fan.
That's right.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
That's another joke. It'll be on my OnlyFans. That's my OnlyFan on my OnlyFans. Yeah.
Your OnlyFans account would be the worst place on the internet. Right above like all the like gross stuff we used to send each other back in like 2007. Like, I'm not going to mention any of the names in case any kiddies want to go look at it, but there was some gross stuff being shared in the early 2000s that I'm glad have either been taken down or hid behind some kind of firewall.
Yeah.
Remember that guy with the glass? We don't have to talk about it.
The guy with the glass.
There was a guy with the glass jar that took the glass jar in, but he didn't take it in his hands.
You know what? I don't think I have any idea what you're talking about.
Okay, I wish I were you.
I remember. I thought you were talking about like internet things that we shared.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. I don't remember a glass jar. I remember an obsession with that guy, Brian Peppers.
Oh,
do
you
remember that guy?
Yeah, I remember Brian Peppers. Are you kidding me?
You know who the new Brian Peppers is? That
Isn't it Ryan Snelling?
No, it's that that Russian guy Hasbula or whatever.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah. That he's a little person.
You know, Brian Peppers would do really well for himself in this internet era. Like, he did fine. We're obviously aware of him, but I feel like we could circle back and discuss Brian Peppers on the internet.
Yeah, but he's dead.
Is he?
Yeah, he died.
I've only seen the picture that was like used on Google Images, and if you like Google Brian Peppers, it's just that image, but like in various like sizes and contrasts, like different resolutions. Like it's all the same thing. I didn't really actually consider him to be a living, breathing soul at one point.
Yeah, I think he had some mental illness. So it might not even be cool to like
really
make fun of the young feller.
We can make fun of each other then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So back to body shaming. You got a big thing happened in your life. And I don't know if you've talked about it on your podcast, because I don't know if they knew just how big of a thing it was.
What?
But basketball shorts have left your life.
I talked about that on the podcast. That's
okay.
I mean,
that's what the people want to know.
You could talk about your POV on that whole thing, but I've already discussed it at length.
Oh, I think it's incredible. I think it's a big step forward. I think you're maturing and growing up. I mean, you're going to the gym. You're probably taking those what is it, True Greens or whatever it is that
Athletic Greens.
Athletic Greens. Are you taking them?
No.
Not yet.
No.
It's coming.
Okay.
Yeah. That's going to be a part of your life in 2023. I'm calling it now.
You might be right, actually. I've looked into it. Mm-hmm. Well, you as well. I mean, I feel like you've done some transformational things since we've last sat down like this. Have you not?
So I lost 100 pounds.
Okay.
And then I gained...
halfway there.
That's fair. Who are you, my doctor? No, I gained 30 back. So I'm doing what's called yo-yoing.
Okay.
And it's because the one thing that I've never been good at, and that will surprise no one, is consistency. So diets don't work if you don't stick to them. And so when I hit a plateau, I was like, oh man, I've lost 100 pounds. Better celebrate with some chocolate.
Yeah.
And then I've just been in a chocoholic drunk rage for like 3 or 4 months. And so I've put 35 of it back on, but it's going to come back off. I'm getting back on it, going back to the gym. I have a gym membership anyway. Got to keep going. Got to keep on living.
We just got out of the Easter season. What'd you give up for Lent?
Podcasting.
Hey, can I ask you about this real quick? Because I had an argument with a Mexican. And I say that because Mexicans love Jesus and they're all about Catholicism. I grew up Catholic, and this is one of my best friends. She told me that the thing that you give up for Lent, yeah, there you go.
I work for the Lord.
Yeah, I kind of just was distracted by the dog behind you still, but there was Jesus.
That's
on there.
okay. Yeah.
So my Mexican friend told me that the thing that you give up for Lent is only on Fridays, and I said no, that's the meat thing. Like when you say you give up something for Lent, you don't only not do it on Fridays. It's the entire season of Lent. And she was like, "I'm Catholic," and was like so dead set in this. And I was like, "You're wrong. You're just simply wrong."
No, she's wrong, and I won't disparage the great Mexican people, but your friend who just happens to be Mexican is wrong.
Yeah.
And actually, it makes me uncomfortable that you call her your Mexican friend. What's her name?
Well, I'm not saying her name, but literally 90% of my friends are Mexican here. So,
well, you are in Arizona.
Yeah.
And there's a big Hispanic population there, right?
In Tucson, where I live, I believe it's actually 70% Hispanic. I'm the minority.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's good for you.
It is. It's eye-opening.
Very good for you.
It's eye-opening.
Have you taken in the food and culture? Oh, and your friend's dead wrong because you give up something the entire time of Lent except for Sunday.
Yes.
Because every Sunday is a little celebration of the resurrection. Amen.
Oh, okay. I got you. By the way, no matter what number you had in there when you said I've lost this amount of weight, no matter what that number was, my joke was going to be halfway there. So just so everybody knows.
No, I love it. No, if I could walk around at one, that's hilarious to put a 1 in front of a weight that I would have. But if I could walk around at like 195, you know, I'm a 6 foot tall man.
Yeah.
I'm, big boned. That's what mom told me growing up. And the doctor will not confirm it, but I feel like my bones are bigger. They're bigger than yours for sure.
Yeah. But I don't know. Have you ever broken a bone in your life?
I broke my butt while working out one time.
Okay.
So let me tell you the story. So I broke my tailbone on the leg press machine.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I got on the leg press machine and
your back was at an incline, you're laying back and then pressing up.
Yes.
Yeah, those are not good.
And so I put 400 pounds on it because I thought, hey, I'm a big guy. Surely I can do more than I weigh. Wrong. Yeah. But there was a gym head. You know those idiots that carry around big jugs of water and they can't like reach in their pockets because of all the steroids and whatever things going through their body.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of those guys walks up and he's like waiting to use the machine, and I already have 400 on. So I go to lift it off to show, hey, I'm fat, but I'm strong. How dare you?
Yeah.
And it gets up and I go, oh, and I push it up and I'm like, oh, this hurts. Something's wrong. But he's standing right there and I can't let him know that I'm a wuss.
Yeah.
So I push it up 8 times. And on like the 3rd or 4th, I felt something that did not feel right. Finished my workout, hobbled over to the treadmill and like walked for 45 minutes, went home the next day, could not get out of bed. And I broke my butt. So yes, I have.
When was this?
This was right before, this was probably August, September.
Why are you going to burp on my podcast?
I got to bring it in. I got to give the people what they want and what they expect out of a face like this. Yeah. So, and I've seen a shirtless picture of you.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, you're like a young Chris Evans. Slightly less attractive.
A lot less attractive.
Slightly less tall. But hey, you've got a tight little body.
I'm getting uglier and uglier by the year. Actually, you know what? That's not true. I was watching as I was looking through the YouTube videos on Sight and Sound, and part of it I think was the production value, but I looked in some of those older videos. I am actually better looking now, and it feels great. Like,
take a poll. Put it in a poll. Am I better looking now or back 10 years ago?
You know what? You've humbled me, and I realized that going down that path of talking about how attractive I am, that's not where I want to be. So let's talk about let's talk about what I want to do with you here today on this episode. So, for those of you who are kind of new to how we segment this out, I did it last week here on Watch Diary. I record the whole show, but it's also segmented into types of videos. And so one of the things that we're going to do here at the top, which is just sort of like we kind of already been doing it, but I have a specific topic I want to talk about here with you today. The opening of the show is going to be called Live Diary, and it's kind of just like the wild card freeform show. If I'm by myself, I can talk about my life. I can talk about whatever's bothering me or whatever. So this is the Live Diary portion, and this is something that I'm like very passionate about. At least when it comes, I speak to you about this a lot off camera, off mic. The topic I want to discuss is Chris D'Elia.
Okay.
So just to give everybody a little bit of background, before Chris D'Elia got canceled, I was a massive fan of his.
Oh, yeah.
I saw him perform live in my hometown back in Kentucky. That would have been the winter of 18, I guess. It was like right before I even thought about moving, and I moved in 19. So it would have been like Christmas of 2018. Well, that's still not true. It would have been 2017, I guess. Because no, never mind. It was 2018. It doesn't matter. But
this is the important thing, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I listened to the Congratulations podcast. I had group texts based on my fandom for Chris D'Elia, and I got you into the Chris D'Elia podcast. I remember speaking to you after like a couple of episodes, and you said you didn't, like, you weren't sure how you felt about it yet. You didn't quite get it, and then all of a sudden it just sort of opened up, and you became a massive fan of his too, right? But it was primarily the podcast and not his stand-up. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I didn't care for his stand-up until I knew him from the podcast, and then it got funnier. Like, it takes a while to get D'Elia, because he's so arrogant.
Right.
But that was back, like, you kept sending me texts about him and that Ben Shapiro show that you were really into. And Ben
Shapiro show.
Yeah, and Tucker Carlson. And then right around that time.
No.
Yeah, it was Tucker Carlson, it was Ben Shapiro.
Are you talking about when I like got into right-wing YouTube and was watching
No.
Louder Than Crowder?
Oh gosh, what a fella that Crowder is. No. I got really into D'Elia. I thought like I would do things on Sight and Sound Music knowing that you would listen.
Yeah.
And just to get you to laugh. Like, because all the time I'd go, that little D'Elia thing.
I do that all the time at work. Like, my coworkers think that's a Ryan thing, but it's a Chris D'Elia thing.
Yeah, don't ever correct them.
I won't.
It's your best work. No, yeah, so we were both big fans, and then it came out that he was texting underage girls, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like a hodgepodge of things, but I do feel like if there's a spectrum, I feel like it was all on the same spectrum, if that makes sense. Like, it was a couple of different things. I feel like it was like a little bit of grooming, but also just kind of like trying to hook up with girls, but it was all kind of like, if there's a spectrum. But I do, and I'm glad that we're talking about this kind of thing right out the gate here on the Watch Diary podcast, because part of what I want to establish here on the first or second episode of this rebrand is that I'm not going to try to be woke. Like, on Sight and Sound, I tried to be woke, and so I'm just going to pull a Game of Thrones and right out the gate, just so you know, I'm not woke, because I would rather not be woke than be woke and then get caught not being woke, because that's just where we are. But we can't not talk about this kind of stuff every now and then.
Yeah.
I guess
remember
this is more cancel culture, I guess, than woke, but it kind of all blends together.
Well, I remember I texted you and I was like, so are you done with D'Elia? And you were like, yeah, man, I'm out, all the way out. And I was like, huh. Because in the beginning, like, so when the allegations came out, and all allegations should be taken seriously, every single one of them.
Sure.
But you don't cancel people yet.
Yeah.
Right. You give people due process. We believe in that. We want the courts to give, like, when targeted folks of color when people of color are targeted by police.
Mm.
We want the courts to give them the benefit of the doubt when anyone gets taken in, but you know, especially given the police's record of killing young people of color, you want the courts to give everyone, but especially people of color, the benefit of the doubt until anything comes out, right? You want to treat everyone as innocent until proven guilty, but our culture just does not care about that. They care about making immediate decisions and holding those views no matter what. For example, none of us know what happened in that room with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Now, we've learned a few things. We've learned that Amber Heard likes to do the bed, but we don't know. Like, when you first hear the news, certain people want to go, oh, Johnny Depp's innocent. Of course he did nothing wrong. He was Captain Jack Sparrow.
Right.
And then the other side want to go, no, a woman said it. It's true. Women don't lie. Well, I've met lying women. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a hard place to be. And I don't think you have to make an immediate choice about that. I think you can go, well, let's just hear out both sides. Take it serious, investigate, arrest if you must. But don't kill someone in the court of public opinion before you know what actually went on.
Right.
And that's what I was hoping, would happen with D'Elia. D'Elia denied everything from what I remember.
No, that's not true. He had like a video that came out about a year or so ago where he just sat awkwardly in front of the camera on his YouTube channel, and he didn't really speak specifically about the each case or allegation, but it was just like a broad hey, I've done a lot of things that I've messed up and I've disappointed you guys, and I actually appreciated it. Even though even at this point I hadn't even decided that I was going to come back to him, but he posted it and it was the first thing he had done in I think 8 months or something like that. A long time went by when he didn't obviously publish anything or do any sort of stand-up whatsoever, where he stayed quiet. All of a sudden I had this video in my inbox or subscription, whatever you want to say. And I watched it. And then even after that, he sort of started slowly but surely coming back. And at first it was kind of I kind of rolled my eyes because his first episode back was so much about the awkwardness of it, but also about his kid. And it kind of felt like he was just pulling this hey, I'm a dad now, aren't I cute? This sympathy thing. And I didn't know how I felt about it. I didn't know if it was truthful or if it was coming off as disingenuous. I was like, oh, this is, but in a way, genius. Because this is the card he gets to play. Because in a weird way, he had the kid at the perfect time. Because it's something at any point he can use to talk about. And he's sympathetic.
Yeah. That's why he did it.
Probably.
This has all been constructed by him.
This was in an envelope slid under his door. You will be blackmailed very soon. And he went and procreated right away. He's just well, I gotta have something. No, I'm just kidding.
So I do think we need to be open to people apologizing and learning from mistakes, even if they're grave mistakes, right?
Sure.
I don't think that a bad decision or even a series of bad decisions. I believe in the power of change. Obviously, I'm a man of the Lord. I believe in forgiveness. But I also believe in taking responsibility for actions.
Right.
And so it's a both and, right? I don't want to cancel someone unnecessarily, but I do for example, there are certain things that I'll forgive and certain things I won't. As I Lay Dying is a band I will never, ever again listen to.
Right.
Right. Because of what happened with Tim Lambesis, trying to kill his wife or whatever through paying someone. And he's just always felt so disingenuous to me anyway. He reminds me of one of our friends, and I'll tell you about it off air. But to my knowledge, that friend has never tried to kill his wife.
Yeah.
But and then Jesse Lacey, right? From Brand New, who went through that whole thing. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think Jesse's retired. But if not, would I be open to a real apology and then them changing? I would hope so. I would hope that all of us have the ability to do better, right?
Yeah. Just I don't know if I've even gotten here yet, but the reason why this is being brought up and the reason we're having this conversation is because you and I have talked about listening to Dalia again. And even my friend Eric texted me and asked me if I was back to listening to Dalia, and I have been. And I mostly feel fine about it, but it is kind of weird to do this. And it's the conversations, of course, that we can always have about separating art from artists. Like, on one hand, it's like, am I just like justifying this too much because I'm so entertained by it? But also, you mentioned what's going on with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And as you were talking about it, I just simply thought to myself, I don't care about any of that. Like, Amber Heard, I don't think should be in Aquaman 2. Like, that's just my personal opinion. Based on it, but that's purely comes down to the inconsistency of how that studio. I mean, the studio took out Johnny Depp from Fantastic Beasts and replaced him with Mads Mikkelsen, but they're not doing that with Amber Heard. And so that's where I sort of have the stance of like, just be consistent, or like figure out what you want to do with these types of celebrities, because it's only going to get worse, I feel like. But I don't think Amber Heard should stay in Aquaman 2, but she is, as far as I know. I
don't think there should be an Aquaman 2, but that's neither here nor there. The first one was so good.
I like the first one.
Of course you do.
I like the first one.
No, it was trash.
Okay. Well,
Uncharted 4 had better graphics than Aquaman. Anyway, okay. So I'm not currently listening to Dalia. So okay. I don't like listen to his podcast, but his Instagram videos pop up in my feed and I watch every one of them.
Yeah.
As they come up, I'm like, I remember why I liked this guy.
Right.
And if he's done some work and, you know, he's trying to make amends, whatever, I don't necessarily have a problem with listening to him, but I also don't have all the information. So I don't know what to do with Dalia, but if a TikTok comes across my my Instagram feed or whatever, you know, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I think the thing that helps, and of course I know that it's coming through his channel, like I get it, it's like coming through the Crystalia prism. But he talks often about his fiance, his son, he talks about going to therapy, and his podcast makes me scream. Like, I find myself dying laughing in my car, and I don't get that often, like from a stand-up comedian. And it's another thing too. The thing about his podcast, and I've heard him speak about this, but I'm someone who, like, Chris D'Elia probably doesn't like me as a fan because I think his podcast is better than his stand-up. Right. And I've heard him speak about that before, that he gets that criticism and it pisses him off. I don't think his stand-up's bad, but I don't think he's an all-time great comedian. But
right, totally.
But he has a podcast that makes me scream of laughter, like lose my mind. And he still does. Like, it's not like he was neutered. He still makes me cry laughing right now.
Yeah.
And so I've considered a lot, and it's just my also personal opinion that his crimes only go so far with me. Because depending on how accurate they are, I also think that, like, if we're just talking about Tex and we're not talking about him being a physical monster, then I feel like it's just something that these people are gonna forget about. Like,
I don't know. I think.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I think like Tex can also be destructive and can really wreck someone if they're being groomed, right? Because what else does that set them up for?
Yeah, maybe again, not that one in particular, but
yeah, I don't know all the details. But if he's just a creepy guy, well, you know, sadly, we're all kind of creepy guys. Like,
yeah,
you know, hopefully we're not all doing the same things. I'm not, but you know, I think that that his is so hard to speak to because I don't know any of the specifics.
Right.
I just know the generalities, and that he, you know, apparently has apologized for all kinds of things. Now, it was a blanket statement. And so some people may be frustrated with that, but I am all about people rising above after a fall. Like, you know, do better. So now let me ask you this question. Cosby puts out a podcast. Are you listening to it?
No.
Cosby's done for you.
Cosby, and I don't want to make this into like, fans whining about not getting to be fans of these monsters anymore, because that's not what I'm doing. It's Bill Cosby before his issues. He had a much larger impact on my life than Chris D'Elia ever has.
Yeah.
The Cosby Show was a nightly ritual for me, and I still think to this day, I mean, if you want to talk about separating art from artists, to this day, The Cosby Show is one of the greatest sitcoms and television shows I have ever seen in my life. I have not thought once about going back and revisiting that show since all that stuff happened.
Yeah.
Now, and you can talk about, you could talk about how all these other people were involved, and it's not just him that was affected, it's all these other actors that you care about. And I understand that, and it's not like if I happen to cross it on television, I don't think that show's played anymore purely because of Bill Cosby. If I came across it,
I think it's on Fox News. Go ahead.
If I came across it, I wouldn't be like, ugh, maybe I'd watch it for a second, but like I don't need that anymore. Like when Bill Cosby happened, I put that to bed. I don't think it's the same, and that's why I spoke at the top about this like spectrum of what Chris D'Elia did versus what Bill Cosby did.
Yeah, it was a joke, but you took it seriously.
I did.
And I mean, he's like 900 now, and no, of course, no one's going to listen to a podcast. Can you imagine a podcast with 80-year-old Bill Cosby?
I'm sure there's 80-year-olds on podcasts though.
Maybe. But here's the thing: if you're
not,
80,
I'll be the first one.
If you're 80, don't start a podcast.
No, I'm gonna be the first 80-year-old to have a podcast.
You think you'll live to 80? You got good habits?
Yeah, I think so.
You think you'll live to 100?
No.
You don't think science will have made leaps and bounds by then?
We've been hearing about this anti-aging for a long time, and we're not doing anything with it.
Are you still taking ginkgo biloba?
No.
Dang it. So there it was, the fountain of youth.
So I want to put a pin in this real quick. So do you have plans, or maybe not plans, but are you open to revisiting and getting back into the Chris D'Elia Congratulations podcast?
Sure. There's a few things I would need to know. I would love to go back and watch that apology video.
Yeah.
Because so many times celebrities will apologize after doing horrendous things, and we're just like, okay, all's forgiven, right? Like, what's her name? One ESPN's person of the year, Jenner. What's her first name?
Are you talking about Caitlyn Jenner?
Sure. Caitlyn Jenner. Okay. She killed somebody.
Right.
Ran them over with her car, and she still gets to be a celebrity.
Was she the driver?
I don't know. That's what I thought.
I'm not positive either.
Yeah, I'm just getting all this info from Family Guy jokes. No, but here's the thing. If something like that happens, we're easy to forgive certain people and not others.
Yeah.
Right? Caitlyn Jenner also happens to be a staunch conservative. And that's almost worse than killing someone with your car in our country right now, as it should be. However, like, I think everyone is open to getting better. I think we have to find a way that balances taking everything seriously. Like, I think the Me Too movement has been good. It's done so much good. But we need to, I think sometimes we get so addicted to canceling people now. And instead of, we got to ask tougher questions, we have to take allegations seriously, but we still have to presume innocence until proven guilty. Like, no matter what OJ does, that dude's guilty in the court of public opinion. Now, he was found not guilty, and he was free for a while, and then he did some other stuff, and then he wrote a book called If I Did It. So I don't know if he's guilty or not. Casey Anthony, proven innocent. I think she did it. So I think like there's a time and place for a court of a public opinion, but we canceled Aziz Ansari. I think he's coming back now.
Yeah.
Or been back. And so I think it's a good thing because it forces people to start paying closer attention to their actions and to actually do some self-reflecting, like, wow, I'm a monster. I should stop doing this.
Yeah. I think that the greatest thing the Me Too movement did is just at least get me to consider and think about my actions and other people's actions.
Good. It's a good thing.
Because I don't know that, like, I wasn't really, I didn't have conversations about that growing up. And, you know, I grew up but I don't know that, like, my parents were even equipped to do that because
mine either.
Were they equipped to talk to me about how I text girls, about how we live in an area an era when everything is recorded and screenshotted? No, they're not equipped to do that. So the thing that worked with Me Too was that it got me to actually think about all this kind of stuff and talk about it. But it also, like, I'm kind of done listening to celebrities talk about that kind of stuff now. Like, I'm over it. Because I don't know if you saw it on the Oscars, because nobody wants to talk about anything other than Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. But the 3 female hosts who spit all about Me Too and equal rights and all that kind of stuff all the time groped Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa on stage. Like, you can watch the video, like, it's crazy. Like, there was this whole, like, the joke, it was Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Regina Hall, right, from Scary Movie. And the joke was about, like, COVID testing, and then it evolved into, like, oh, so we're gonna have to strip search you in the back, or test you for COVID in the back, something like that. And then the joke was they named, like, the hottest men in the room. And then right after that, because they wanted to take the hottest men in the room to the back and you know,
Danny DeVito,
right,
Gary Busey.
So as they were walking off, Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa come out to present, and they continued the joke and walk over and give Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa full pat downs, and, like, kept going with the joke. Everybody was laughing, and I wasn't mad at it, but I was just literally thinking to myself, this is incredible. Because this would have been about Me Too 4 years ago, and now these women have gone to groping them in on stage.
Well, I think you're missing something because neither of the guys came out and was like, that was gross. Like, they shouldn't have done that.
But yeah, as far as I know, that is accurate. And that's part of why I'm not angry about it. I'm just saying I find it interesting.
Yeah, and B, I think the power dynamic is not there with those two because those two are bigger than any of those other people. Amy Schumer,
yeah,
gross. Wanda Sykes, she was great on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes.
What else has she done?
She had her own show.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
She's one of the all-time best comedians, is she not?
No.
Oh. Okay.
No. All-time best comedians?
I don't know a lot about her material, but I mean...
Yeah, no.
I feel like she has to be if Wanda Sykes is relevant enough to host the Oscars. I just felt like it was a blind spot.
I think they looked for 3 women.
Yeah.
I think they were, which is fine. But Amy Schumer would not have been in there for me. I think there's, what's that podcast? There's a huge podcast, and it's got a female host, and she's hilarious. My wife listens to her. It used to be a duo. Anyway, you can look it up. Go look at the top of the charts, and it's going to be number 1 or number 2. She's hilarious. I can't remember her name. There's all kinds of great talent. You don't have to reach into the bargain bin to pick out someone from Scary Movie and Amy Schumer, because she just did like a serious movie, right?
Amy Schumer?
Yeah. Did you watch it?
I can't remember.
She had a kid and now she's like serious.
I honestly quit following her. I found her to be insufferable. And what's funny is she actually was the funniest one of all the hosts, but she wasn't perfect because, she's right now,
a joke thief.
Right now, like the hindsight on the Oscars is incredible because Like now you realize how many of these actors just like applauded Will Smith and let him get it. I mean, talk about like having consistency with how you behave and how you judge people, and the fact that so many people let him get away with that is crazy to me. And the fact that so many comedians defended Will Smith blows my mind.
Oh,
Like,
I couldn't believe he was allowed to stay in the room.
yeah, it's crazy.
Anyone
But
else, they would have escorted out. This
yeah,
just goes to show, like, and then people are all up in arms, and I want to be. At the end of the day, both of these people are millionaires.
right,
So one millionaire attacked another millionaire.
right.
Yeah, I think it's all a joke. I think he shouldn't have been hit for his joke, but
No,
I think Will Smith was completely out of order. And
100%.
I think, I think that whole family, the whole like red table bull crap, like the way they raise their kids,
Oh,
which
give
one
me
of
a
them
break.
dresses, I know, right? Like,
I can't.
shut up.
It's insufferable. Like,
Oh, it seems so healthy.
that's what I turn into. Like, they've just annoyed me so much outside of like their art. Like,
Mhm.
it almost turns me into that person who tells LeBron to shut up and dribble, which is not how I actually feel about that.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, that's what I want to. My gut reaction is just be in movies I want to watch. Like, I don't need any of this other
Huh.
stuff.
Doesn't she have like a metal band? Go scream in your
Yeah,
metal band. And she's gorgeous.
yeah.
So what? This gorgeous woman, like this almost perfect one. Hey, alopecia, not cancer. It's not cancer.
It
That's
isn't.
what I wanted to say. Now,
Is
should
it
you make
hard?
fun of?
No.
Yeah. Should you make fun of people with stuff like that? No. But Ricky Gervais did it, and not one hit was thrown.
You're
And
right.
he threw out way harder things. You just don't hit people.
Yeah.
If they would have got up and walked out, they would have won the internet that day.
Mm.
More so than the slap. If he would have stood up, went out, and said, "We will not be a part of this. You're not going to make fun of my wife's disability."
So Crystalia.
Yeah,
Did we talk about Crystalia during the Crystalia
Yeah.
segment? Anyway.
that's right.
Okay. So
Don't hit people.
there you go. Beautiful. All right, I want to talk about the Batman briefly because I've already talked about it on the podcast and I've already done a ranking, but I still want to walk through this with you because I know you have a lot of things on your mind. So just go on and give me all you got on the Batman.
Okay, so I thought Robert Pattinson as Batman did a great Christian Bale impression. I thought, the voice that he put on was funny.
We're already so far. Oh my
No,
god.
no. He did. It's not bad. He did a good job at Christian Bale. But you're telling me the voice he put on when he was Batman wasn't? That's not how he talks. I've heard him talk. He's Cedric Diggory. He's a Tri-Wizard State champion. Okay, he doesn't have to put on that. Who's Job Bluth? What's the guy's name who plays Job?
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett. He does a Will Arnett impression. He's like, "Where is she? I must go over here." Because that's what he sounds like. Anyway, I thought it was a good Batman movie. I thought it was good. There were some silly goose times. Anytime I saw Batman during the day, I was like, what is happening? You are a grown adult. You are over the age of 21 and you are in a full latex bat suit and you go into clubs and you fight criminals.
Okay, so the club scenes weren't during the day. His suit isn't latex.
What is it?
And we've seen other Batmen during the day.
Oh, I'm sure we've seen other Batman during the day, and we'll get there. This was it was grounded in a way that made this movie to me was grounded in a way that made Batman seem even stranger than I ever thought about him, to where the Nolan films Batman's was grounded in a way that I believed that it could happen. Does that make sense? Like there was a believability, like it feels like the Nolan films were set in our world. This did not feel like our world. And that might be a good thing. I'm just saying it felt different to me. This one felt, why did they do that to Colin Farrell? Okay. He didn't deserve that. He's a handsome man. And they made him the Penguin.
I think he wanted to do it, especially
I'm
because
sure.
all the videos that have come out that are obsessing over the prosthetic process and everything that he, to get there. And the fact, I just think I marvel at it. I think
He
it's
took
incredible.
no,
He
he took
disappeared.
roles. He took roles from my people.
Mm.
The overweight, bald, not so good looking. I mean, I could have been the
You
penguin.
could have, yeah, you could have, yeah.
Yeah, I could have been Oscar Oswald, whatever his name was.
Oswald.
There's only one penguin, and his name is Danny DeVito. Anyway,
No.
I thought it was grounded in a way that was different from the Nolan films. I thought, again, when he's up on that skyscraper talking to Kitty Girl, Catwoman, and it's it's like a golden hour. I was just like, this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. This is a grown man choosing to do this. But I thought I thought the story was cool. I love the detective aspect about this one, that I don't feel are in the other ones. The other ones feel like Batman is Iron Man, right? Like he's a billionaire. He's got people working for him. And so it felt like, oh, this is how he could have these things. This one felt like he's doing it all on his own. And so I didn't buy it or believe it, but I liked it still. So Robert Pattinson, worst Bruce Wayne ever. For sure, worst Bruce Wayne. As Bruce Wayne. Terrible job. As Batman, pretty good job. So let's rank these films. Okay. I want to talk about Paul Dano, your favorite actor in Hollywood. Paul Dano was such a nothing villain. Nothing. Like they tried to, like the only time you see him other than when he's in that restaurant and he's like, I just ordered a coffee. But when he goes in there and he's like overacting, I just didn't believe him, or like I thought he did not do a great job as the Riddler. In the costume, terrifying because it's been done and it's called Zodiac. Zodiac is a better Riddler than the Riddler. And then I thought the introduction, the last scene of the film where you see him talking to the future Joker, Billy Kudrup or Kroger or whatever his name is. You know what I'm talking about? The guy who's going to play the Joker?
Yes,
anyway.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay, good. I thought, I hope the Joker's in this next one. I don't think they'll do it. I think they'll try and make it a trilogy, much like War for the Planet of the Apes or whatever, that whole Planet of the Apes thing Matt Reeves did, which was great films. But yeah, this one just, I really liked it. It's in my top 5 favorite Batman movies. And so let's get to ranking them.
Hold on. I just want to say, I might not even like clip this out and show this to the public. Like this, I'm just kidding. But
how dare you?
Here's what I think. Here's what I think happened. You obviously studied all of my takes on this film.
I have not heard a single take.
And said the exact opposite things of everything that I've said. That's what
really?
You did. Yes.
No, I have not.
I think it is so hard for me, and it's not going to be a debate because I'm not interested in that. I'm just going to let you be Brando, and
yeah. So as I go through, go through my list,
it is so hard to sit still as you talk. It is so it is so hard to let you do this, and I'm gonna be spent, and I'm gonna need a nap after this.
Okay, so you tell me your rank out. So we'll go one for one. Here we go.
All right, hold on. Let me pull up my list, but the thing is, it's not gonna be perfect because I'm just assuming that I've seen more of these movies than you have.
Are you including animated versions?
I have theatrical movies with the Batman ranked.
So like Mask of the Phantasm.
But yeah, that's the only. Well, I mean, Lego Batman and Phantasm are the only 2 animated ones that I have.
Okay, I can add those in there. Okay, number 1, The Dark Knight. It's the best Batman movie.
As of right now, I have that as my number 1.
Okay. Number 2, The Dark Knight Rises.
This is the point of contention.
Okay.
So first of all, if we're just talking Nolan, I don't know how anyone says Dark Knight Rises is better than Batman Begins. But what you've also done is put it above the Batman. Um, because it's crazy to me that you have, um, it's crazy to me that you have The Dark Knight Rises over the Batman Begins.
Okay. Well, this is the correct list that I'm going over. So
And
again,
it's
the
your
Dark
list.
Knight,
It's your list.
the Dark Knight Rises, the Batman is number 3. Batman Begins, number 4. And then the rest of them. No, and then Mask of the Phantasm. And then Mask of the Phantasm is above Batman Begins. Batman Begins is the most boring Nolan Batman movie, period, ever, period. It's so boring. I've fallen asleep during Batman Begins 5 times trying to watch it. 5 times, Ryan. And Christian Bale has that weird lip thing in the bat suit that drives me insane. He's got the Sandra Bullock lip crease.
I'm gonna if you keep going with this kind of shit, I'm gonna make you refer to me as Rewatch.
Okay. You could try.
Yeah, you have to call me Rewatch if you're gonna talk like this.
Okay,
so you can feel stupid.
Batman Begins, then Lego Batman. No, I don't hate Lego Batman. It's fine. It's better than Batman Begins then. And then the Batman or Batman Returns. No, yeah, and then all the rest of the whatever that terrible
Okay.
one.
So this
Batman
is where
and Robin and the other one.
This is where we find common ground, and this is where I'm somewhat relieved because you're a couple of years older than me. You probably grew up.
That's right.
You probably grew up with the Burton Schumacher Batman movies more than I did.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So here's the thing. It gives me a lot of comfort knowing that you're dismissive of those, or at least more dismissive of those movies, like I am. Because listen, like I knew that Batman Forever sucked, and I knew that Batman and Robin sucked, but I actually have fun with it, even though it's ridiculous, and I would never put it anywhere near a top 5 Batman movies. But going back and watching Batman and Batman Returns, I don't need those movies. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Christopher Nolan, I think, obviously did a better job and obviously modernized and revolutionized comic book movies with that trilogy. But I thought Batman Returns was almost unwatchable. Batman Returns, like some people's favorite Batman movie, I found it unwatchable. And sorry, Danny DeVito's Penguin, get out of here. Get out of here. I feel like Danny DeVito, all we've been doing the past few years is shitting on Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy and Bane and Riddler and Two-Face and the Schumacher films. Danny DeVito's Penguin is in that same group. Give me a break. Like, all these movie pundits who have been arguing, like all the John Rokas and like people at Collider who are that argue the Batman Returns merit or the original Batman, get out of here. And like the people that, and I work with a lot of people, and I kind of get this, but I don't. I work with a lot of people who were dismissive of the Batman, being like, aren't there enough Batman movies? As far as I'm concerned, there's only 4. And this was the 4th one. And so how can we complain? Aren't there enough? How can we complain and say, are there enough Batman movies after 4 great ones when we're on the 28th Marvel thing? Like, give me a break. Batman might as well have just started in 2005 with Batman Begins.
Get there.
As far as I'm concerned.
We'll speaking of Marvel, we'll get there later in this conversation. But I think that, so I had the Batman in my top 5, right? It was the Dark Knight Rises, the Batman Begins, or Mask of the Phantasm, Lego Batman Begins. Batman Begins is just not a great film. You cannot build a character off Cillian Murphy unless he's in Peaky Blinders.
Well, as much as I hate your ranking, we have the same top 5.
That's right.
Just in a different order.
Yeah. So how does that make you feel? That I said that he's the worst Bruce Wayne.
Pattinson?
Yeah.
I think it's like one of those things where like,
are you a fan of Robert Pattinson's work?
I am, but I'm not as well read. Like I love
Yeah.
the movie Good Time.
Oh
Love
yeah,
it.
Good Time's great.
I think he's great in The Lighthouse, even though that movie really pisses me off.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's yeah. I hate that movie.
and just the narrative in general. Like I'm so down to see anything he does because I know that he wants to be taken seriously. And also, Twilight was just like forever ago.
No,
Like
yeah.
Twilight Boy, like it's move on. Like he's done a million things
Yeah.
since then. And
He was
so
Cedric Diggory. So
yeah.
anytime someone brings up the Twilight stuff, I'm like, wait a minute. That's Cedric Diggory.
He also
Watch
had
your
like
mouth.
literally 5 lines in Goblet of Fire. Did you like literally his intro scene when they meet right before they take the port key? He literally just like waves and smiles as his dad introduces him. Like
That's
he
all
has,
he needs to do.
yeah. Well,
He's
anyway,
a handsome man. Now, I do like The Lighthouse, but I went into it thinking it was a horror movie and it's a weird art movie. And
Yeah.
so I laughed many times during that movie. So I do like it, but it's silly goose time.
Yeah. I think the thing about him being the worst Bruce Wayne is that it kind of like I don't agree, but I don't really have a problem with you saying that because it's obviously the one movie that has Bruce Wayne in it the least amount. Like it almost be like inconsequential to say that he's the worst Bruce Wayne because it just doesn't even matter to its own movie that he's Bruce Wayne. Because he's the Batman literally 90% of the time. But also it's the worst Bruce Wayne because you're not as enamored with him but that's the intent of the movie. So it's just whether you agree with this portrayal of he hasn't figured out his billionaire playboy status persona, which is his actual persona, or his character, I should say, that he puts on, and the Batman is his real person. So we're gonna see that in the next movie, 100%. Billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne, he's gonna figure it out, and that's gonna be part of the arc of the next movie, 100%.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Anyway,
Hopefully you can find a personality between now and then.
the title of this video is Brando's Dong Take on the Batman. Is the name of this video.
That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, all in all, it was a good movie. I liked it. It was long.
It
It's
is
3
long.
hours.
It is long.
Felt like an Arkham game.
All right, so here's the point where I can either talk to you about the unbearable weight of massive talent, or should we conserve our time because we also have to talk Austin Powers?
Let's go Austin Powers and Avengers.
Okay, let's do that. So I'm gonna pause just to give myself a marking. And we don't even have to, if you don't want to.
Do you want me to pause mine?
No, we'll just keep it going. I'll worry about it later. How much time do you have left? If we don't
I
have
have
to,
plenty.
are you sure?
Yeah.
Because we've already done a lot, and we don't have to talk about the Avengers. I can do that later if you want.
No, that's good. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So everything else,
The Avengers won't be a long. I have a few funny quips about it, but still great.
okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap up this point of the podcast because this Austin Powers thing is gonna be its own video and podcast. So I'm just gonna wrap up and quote unquote send you off because I'm gonna continue the podcast solo.
Okay.
Okay. Awkward cut. All right, so I'm gonna take it from here, Brando. Thank you so much for joining us on Watch Diary. It's been a pleasure as always. But yeah, we're sending you packing because you didn't do the required reading and watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Real quick,
Right.
any fandom for Nicolas Cage before I let you go?
I think Con Air is a great movie. It's great as for what it is.
Yeah.
When he says put down the bunny, I felt that. Like if I was holding a bunny, I would have put it down.
Not to ruin my review, but it's not a movie you need to go to the theaters and see. So when Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent comes out on digital, do you have plans to watch it?
Absolutely.
It's worth watching, but you don't need to race to the theater.
Got ya.
All right.
I don't do a lot of racing.
Do you want to tell the people where they can find you, or are you just gonna do your thing where you say you're not on Twitter or whatever you say?
I'm not on Twitter, but you can find me on Instagram at Brando Big Mouth.
Yeah, there you go. Just go there. All right.
Boom.
All right, guys. Welcome back. I don't know why I said welcome back. It's not really back to you. It's back to me. Because since I said goodbye to Brando, we actually recorded 2 other podcasts that are going to be released on a later date. Why am I still wearing headphones? I don't know. I will say real quick, I'm just to give you some insight because it is kind of interesting and it's a different way to work than I've ever worked in terms of podcasting. Brando and I just decided that Friday was going to be our recording day. And I think, especially when it comes to the main theatrical releases, like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, like The Northman, he's not going to get to the theater as much as I am, which is totally fine. But I'm going to be at the theater recording what I need to record for you all on the same day, the same recording day. So we recorded that entire chunk that you just listened to or watched. And then we recorded 2 other podcasts that are coming out on a later date. And now I'm circling back and finishing the first podcast. So technically, I'm all over the place, but it's okay. My trusty Trenta cold brew at this point is gone. I have my trusty Trenta water, but I've moved on to a Coke Zero because I have to stay caffeinated as I do this. All right, so let's talk about the unbearable weight of massive talent. Nicolas Cage. For me, it's a tremendous blind spot. His entire filmography, I've pretty much been out on. I knew that I had to see this movie because it was a celebration of movies. It was a celebration of one of our greatest movie stars that personally I have missed out on. And I knew that there were probably references to his career and the movies that I wouldn't get. So that's why I did a never before seen episode talking about The Rock, Con Air, Matchstick Men, and Lord of War before I went into this movie. Now, did I know that certain movies would be referenced more than any others? No, I did not. I picked 4 movies on that episode that I felt were relevant to me, and I explained that further on that episode. You can find it on the Watch Diary podcast feed or right here on this YouTube channel. So, I knew that I still had like 100 movies left to see to properly inform and educate myself on everything involving Nicolas Cage. But that never before seen I did is technically part 1, and another Nicolas Cage never before seen is coming. Part 2 is going to be the first 4 movies that I recognized that were referenced here in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and I believe I have that list. But I knew that it would prompt further discussion moving forward, so there will be more never before scenes on Nicolas Cage. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. But for right now, let's review Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent from somebody who doesn't know every single little thing about Nicolas Cage. I know more about Nicolas Cage as an actor or as a meme than I do his actual filmography, but I have been into movies in the past that are about movies. This reminded me the most of probably honestly like a Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which is sort of a commentary on movie making and also the self-awareness that this kind of movie has. I don't know, another movie that's relevant to me that's about movie making in the industry, like an Entourage, you know. And I didn't really know a whole lot about what this was going to be. I knew that Pedro Pascal was playing a fan of Nicolas Cage, but I don't remember really seeing any of the trailers. I just heard the discussion centered around this movie. So that's how I knew, and that's how it sort of prompted me to watch the movies that I watch. But I didn't know a whole lot about this movie itself, other than it was a ridiculous premise. I remember the press release, I believe, that Nicolas Cage would be playing himself in a movie. And at the time, it seemed on brand for him, but also everything that he was doing up until this point in terms of just being bombastic and absurd and making movies that were going to go straight to digital release or whatever that wouldn't really be in the cultural consciousness. And I feel like I was right up until that last statement. This movie has been in the cultural consciousness, and to the point where it got me to, finally sit down and watch everything Nicolas Cage. The 2022 is going to be a huge Nicolas Cage year for me, and it's because of this movie. So it's definitely done a lot more for him than I think a lot of his other movies have in the past. Worldwide at this point, and I'm a week late, I explained that. This movie's coming out a week late, I understand. Worldwide, it's made $11 million, which is a little disappointing because I feel like the conversation seems to be greater. But in the theater, I was kind of surprised. I saw this a week late on a Thursday night viewing, and there were a couple of pockets of people. Not a lot. Like, I was here, a couple people were here, a couple of people were here, a couple of people were here. Just a couple of pockets of people. But they all had a blast watching this movie in the theater. Usually, especially if you're in a comedy, usually if you're just in a theater with a couple of people, people don't really laugh. I feel like laughs and reactions in general happen more frequently the more people are in the theater. Because I think when it's minimized, people are just less comfortable being outward with those reactions, and you don't hear them as much. But it was kind of an intimate experience I shared with these people that were clearly Nicolas Cage fans, because they were laughing at things that I didn't really catch on to. But they were just like genuinely enjoying him and the jokes and the story surrounding this legend, his career. And I got more of it than I actually thought I would. It's not like I'm lost just because I know, like, the movie's not hard to follow. You get it, right? I mean, if you get anything about Nicolas Cage, for the most part, you get this movie. So it's not difficult. But I was surprised at my experience the experience that I shared with the people that I was in the theater with. They had a great time, and they were just loving life watching this movie. And it was a lot of fun. I didn't expect it to be a fun theater experience. I went by myself, which was great. I love going to the movies by myself on random evenings. And yeah, I was excited. I was definitely excited. And let me check up the Rotten Tomatoes score real quick. The box office, very disappointing. Unfortunately. Rotten Tomatoes has it at an 87% for tomato meter and audience score. And I think I totally get it, but I don't think my reaction is that high. And I do think that it's due to the fact that I'm not a lifelong Nicolas Cage fan, but also so much of this movie is reminiscent of other. You have the Nicolas Cage factor, the Nicolas Cage angle. But it's also built into the DNA of a comedy that I'm not unfamiliar with. The aspect that I'm not unfamiliar with, and something that before this movie I've spoken on before. I've spoken about this on podcasts for the long time. I am so uninterested in the comedies where unsuspecting people find themselves in a funny situation that just ends up getting them into hijinks with a drug dealer or like a crime lord. I mean, that's something that we've seen so much of. It's so played, and I find it so uninteresting. And once this movie became that, there wasn't as much going for it for me. I don't think that it's bad by any means. It's simply a premise that I'm exhausted by and I don't find intriguing, but also funny. I mean, the movie becomes a lot less funny the more it becomes a movie about that. Now, that's part of the genius of this. This movie is very aware of what it is because there's constant commentary throughout. A more modern, I think, connection I can make is like a Lord and Miller. The way that 21 and 22 Jump Street are so aware of Hollywood and sequelizations and being in on the joke, it has all of that. Because as this movie becomes more and more about the kidnapping of a girl, the more it becomes a buddy comedy. We're dealing within the story about two people that are thinking about designing a movie with that said thing. That's the entire premise for the most part, or at least that's the starting premise of the movie, is that Pedro Pascal plays a massive Nicolas Cage fan as far as I know, a lifelong Nicolas Cage fan who knows everything there is to know about Nicolas Cage and his films. He writes a screenplay. He offers Nicolas Cage, when he's down on his luck, when he needs the money the most, $1 million to just spend time with him. And ultimately, the angle is he wants Nicolas Cage to read a screenplay that he wrote so they can make a movie together. So as their as their relationship builds, Nicolas Cage becomes more and more suspicious as to who this stranger is. And that eventually leads into the drug dealer aspect, the drug kingpin aspect. But at the same time, they're discussing making a movie and what the character's motives should be, what the story should be. Should it be an adult film drama that's taken very seriously and isn't 4-quadrant? Or should they add a hook in there and make it 4-quadrant? Should they add the kidnapping of a daughter? So the conversations that they're having amongst themselves about their movie is also happening to this movie. And I understand that. And I think it's clever, but also it's not something that I find super interesting or compelling or amazing anymore as I once did to other movies that lately I've had awareness. So the movie starts out very strong. I'm very interested in Nicolas Cage. I was very interested in where he was at his career. I was very interested in him having visions with an alter ego of himself, a younger Nicolas Cage, who seems to have it all figured out. He's down on his luck. I was into that. And then it becomes something else that I'm less into. Now, I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. I find it very entertaining. There were a lot of funny parts, but there's not a whole lot of like memorable laugh out loud gags or anything. And ultimately, I find this to be a fun experiment for the movies. And I find this more compelling in terms of like what this means for Nicolas Cage's career in the future. But this movie, it was fun. It was enjoyable. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with Nicolas Cage this year. But ultimately, I didn't really take away from it anything spectacular or anything amazing. It's not really offering me really anything else in comedy right now. It's maybe one of the more enjoyable comedies lately, but that's just because comedies have been so bad and irrelevant and unfunny the past, 10 plus years. So I would recommend, this is a great home watch, for someone who's excited about Nicolas Cage. It's an amazing fun watch for somebody who loves Nicolas Cage, but I don't know how easy it is to recommend to people who don't really know a whole lot about him, or recommend to people who are looking for a great comedy, or it's more of an interesting case study than it is just a movie I'm blown away by. Now, if you go to my Letterboxd, this movie's going to be up there on my list, and that's just because, of course, we're so early into the year. I mean, it's only the end of April. This is in my top 5 for sure, but this is probably the movie that's going to have it's going to have the most difficult time staying up there. It's only a matter of time before even like Multiverse of Madness could come in and just take the spot. It's a movie, but even like Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't think I've really ever thought about it since. And that's just sort of where I'm at with this. This movie did reference a lot of other movies I'm excited to do Never Before Scenes about, but I think this movie is going to be pivotal when we zoom out, and maybe when a few more years, he's made a few more films, this movie is going to be pivotal. I feel like it's going to be a turning point, and we're going to see a different side of Nicolas Cage moving forward, or different types of movies with Nicolas Cage moving forward. I think he's going to be in a Marvel movie within the next 3 to 5 years. An MCU movie, I should say. And I think we're going to be off and running again. But it's going to be pivotal for that reason only. I don't think it's ever going to be even like one of Nicolas Cage's best movies. I think the best Nicolas Cage movies are still ahead of me. I still have like all of the classics to cover. So yeah. So a great premise. I loved that it incited, it finally gave me a kick in the ass to watch all these movies that I haven't watched. But it ultimately just kind of becomes a movie I'm not interested in. The first 4 movies that it referenced that I picked up on that I have not seen will be covered on the next Never Before Seen. So in order, it was Moonstruck, Guarding Tess, Gone in 60 Seconds, and National Treasure. As far as I know, I didn't recognize Leaving Las Vegas or Raising Arizona references. I'm sure there were. It was helpful that Moonstruck and Guarding Tess and all these movies were mentioned by name and not just like referenced indirectly. So that's why those are the movies that I'm going to cover next. Moonstruck, Guarding Tess, Gone in 60 Seconds, and National Treasure. So there's that. Solid film. Not going to be a lasting film. I'm just excited to watch more Nicolas Cage, to be honest. All right, guys. Let's do every movie ever with Nicolas Cage Part 1. If you haven't seen the companion video, go check out the Never Before Seen. You can also listen to it on the podcast feed. Never Before Seen Nicolas Cage Part 1. I watched 4 movies for the very first time, but also now I've seen The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So let's rank these 5 Nicolas Cage movies, shall we? I don't have a graphic, or I'm not going to clip in anything here. You can follow along to this ranking because I'm going to be doing it all year. I still have a lot of movies to cover when it comes to Nicolas Cage. So I'm going to be doing it all year. You can follow along on my Letterboxd. So go to letterboxd.com/rewatchryan and you can check out this list. But I'm telling you right now, you don't really need a visual because it's just 5 movies. So with that said, go check out the Never Before Seen. I talk about those movies in depth, but right now I'm going to rank the 5 Nicolas Cage movies I've watched in the past week. So starting on the dead bottom is Lord of War. I just ultimately find that it's the least legendary, least iconic movie. It's somewhat dull. It didn't capture my imagination and capture my attention as a lot of other movies with this subject matter do. I thought he gave a great performance. There's not a whole lot that I'm walking away with this movie moving forward. I did watch this in the middle of a Cage-a-thon. It was the 3rd movie of the 4 that I watched in that one day, but ultimately I didn't really walk away with anything too spectacular. I prefer other movies like Blow and American Made that explore this kind of subject even more so, and it just didn't capture my imagination the way that a lot of these other movies did. So there's that. My number 4 is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I enjoyed this movie. I really did, and I had a great theater experience. Couple of laughs, but ultimately I don't think that this is the pivotal all-time Nicolas Cage movie that I thought it was going to be. I think it's going to be a turning point. I think it's going to mean a lot when we zoom out and look at his career in like another 5 or 10 years. But it ended up, by design, unfortunately, becoming just another forgettable comedy where an unsuspecting person goes through some hijinks and gets involved in a drug lord, drug criminal enterprise. And we've seen it done a million times over. And I just don't find that interesting anymore in a comedy. So started out really strong, and then it became somewhat formulaic, and I just wasn't that into it that much. But it's still worthy of watching. Don't think it's a theater watch. I think it's more of an at-home watch for the movie lover, and that's about it. Number 3, Matchstick Men. I didn't love this movie as much as I wanted to, and on the Never Before Seen, I said I would have loved this had I seen it 20 years ago. Or I guess I should say 19 years ago, because it didn't even exist 20 years ago. I love being conned. I love being tricked. I love watching con men perform cons. But the performances in this movie are fantastic. Alison Lohman and Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell, of course, they all do a great job. It's a slick movie, but I didn't find it to be great and amazing. I love that Nicolas Cage portrayed a character that we don't really see that often with his tics, and it was the first little hint of the Nicolas Cage that I feel like that I got that has been memed over the years, his outrageous mega acting, if you will. It was on display here, and I thought it was a really solid, fine, good movie, and I'm glad I watched it. But ultimately, I feel like the best is yet to come, and Matchstick Men won't be as long-lasting. Also find it very curious. I feel like I knew that Ridley Scott directed it, but the amount of Ridley Scott conversations I've had over the years without mentioning this movie once, I just feel like It's a fine Nicolas Cage movie, but doesn't even touch the pantheon of great movies. So the second to last, my number 2 movie is Con Air. This is the second action movie that I watched in this day, and it gave me an insight into the Nicolas Cage that I feel like I've missed out on the most. The action Nicolas Cage of the late 90s, early 2000s is my Nicolas Cage so far, and this is where he's the most buff, and at least from what I've seen. He plays a ridiculous character that I've come to expect from Nicolas Cage, and it's just a rock'em sock'em amazing premise, so much fun. If this movie came out today, Jason Statham would be in it, and it would go straight to video. But there was something special to this, a cat and mouse chase with John Cusack, a movie full of that guys with just fun, interesting dynamics and crazy one-liners. There's enough cheese in there, but cheese that's good cheese, and it was just fascinating to watch, and I loved it. My number 1 Nicolas Cage movie is easily The Rock. I couldn't contain my excitement when I did the Never Before Seen episode. I'm pretty sure I ruined my ranking for it, but The Rock, I think, is Michael Bay's best movie. I see some of the Bayisms in there, but they're not overly saturating the film and distracting, because what really shines is Nicolas Cage, his chemistry with Sean Connery. Ed Harris has a really interesting story to him, and another movie full of that guys, but I just thought it was extremely entertaining. It was a fantastic action movie with great set pieces. Still looks good. It's hardly aged a day, and I was most shocked and surprised at this movie, and I cannot believe how much I love it. It subverted a little bit of my expectations. I thought it was a prison breakout movie, but that's only one tiny aspect when you look at the big picture. And The Rock is a movie that, I don't know, just climbs to one of my all-time favorite action movies, hands down. I love it so much, and I'm so glad that I watched it. It was the very first movie that I watched in my Cage-a-thon, and unfortunately it never got better, but I think it just speaks to how good this is, and I find it incredible. So, of the 5 movies that I've watched so far with Nicolas Cage, my number 1 is The Rock, number 2, Con Air, number 3, Matchstick Men. Number 4, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And number 5 is Lord of War. Guys, if you listen to my review, maybe you're on the podcast and you just heard it, but you might be on the YouTube channel as well. In my review of Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, I promise that I will be doing a Never Before Seen that includes the first 4 movies that I recognized were referenced in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So the next Never Before Seen, Nicolas Cage Part 2, is going to be about Moonstruck, Guarding Tess, Gone in 60 Seconds, and National Treasure. I will get around to Raising Arizona. I will get around to Leaving Las Vegas, Honeymoon in Vegas. Those are some of the classics that come to mind when I think about Nicolas Cage. But for now, it's going to be those 4 movies, and I'm really, really excited to check them out. So guys, thank you for listening to whether it was the Watch Diary podcast or Every Movie Ever or my review, whatever. I've done a lot of videos and podcasts in the past 2 days. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed to the channel, make sure that you turn on all of the notifications so you can see everything that I'm doing. Also, make sure that you're following the podcast Watch Diary wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RewatchRyan. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.